Thanksgiving dinner was a disaster. My sister found out I had $12 million, and before I could even process her reaction, my entire family turned on me, demanding, not asking, that I hand it over to her because she deserved it more. I'm writing this anonymously for obvious reasons, with a few details altered for privacy. Call me Sarah. I'm 38, female, and in desperate need of a place to vent. You know those family dynamics where one child can do no wrong while the other might as well be wallpaper. If that sounds familiar, welcome to my life. For the first 8 years, everything seemed normal enough. I was an only child, and while my parents weren't exactly warm and affectionate, they were present. Mom helped with homework. Dad took me fishing on Lake St. Clair now and then. We weren't the Brady Bunch, but we functioned. Then one night, everything changed. I still remember Aunt Kaylee bursting through the door at 2 a.m, shaking me awake and telling me to pack a suitcase. Mom was in the hospital. My sister Rachel was coming. Too soon, much too soon. The next few weeks were a blur of hushed conversations and hospital visits. Rachel was so small, fragile, barely more than a bundle of wires and tubes. I wasn't allowed to touch her, wasn't even allowed to get too close. And that's when I first felt it, an invisible wall forming between me and the rest of my family. When they finally brought Rachel home, our house became a sterilized war zone. My mom developed an obsession with germs, industrial-strength disinfectants, hand sanitizer stations in every room, a constant, choking cloud of bleach. To this day, the smell makes my stomach twist. But the worst part? The exile. A single sneeze, and I was shipped off to Grandma Marie's or Aunt Kelly's. A cough? Start packing. At first I didn't mind. Grandma Marie baked cookies, and Aunt Kelly had a treasure trove of Nancy Drew books I'd devoured. But kids aren't stupid. Eventually, I understood. I wasn't being sent on little vacations. I was being quarantined. I had become a threat, a walking, breathing hazard to the golden child. I tried. God, I tried. Straight A's? Mom barely looked up from Rachel's latest round of doctor's appointments. First place in the science fair with a project on renewable energy. Dad only asked if I could store my display in the garage since Rachel was allergic to cardboard dust. Is that even a real thing? The moment that truly broke me, though, was when I was 12. I spent months preparing for my school's talent show, learning to play Bridge Over Troubled Water on the piano. The night of the performance, Rachel had a mild fever, 37.3 degrees. Just warm enough to be an excuse. Guess who didn't have a single family member in the audience? Meanwhile, 2 weeks later, the entire extended family showed up to watch Rachel squeak out hot cross buns on the flute. By 7, Rachel had figured out exactly how to work the system. Her actual health issues had faded, but the act remained. Headache? Stay home from school. Tired? Guess who had to do her assignments? Nervous about a test? Mom was on the phone demanding an extension, so I stopped trying. I retreated into my room, burying myself in books on art history and antiques. Funny how things work out. My room became my sanctuary, not because it was mine, but because Rachel insisted she was allergic to my lavender air freshener. It was the one place she wouldn't go. Do you know what was really twisted about Rachel faking illness? A part of me was grateful. At least it meant I'd be sent to Grandma Marie's, where someone would actually ask about my day. Grandma was the one who sparked my love for vintage jewelry. She had an incredible collection of costume pieces that she let me organize and catalog. Looking back, I should have seen it as a prophecy. But the worst part wasn't the blatant favoritism. It was the rewriting of history. Rachel just needs more attention because she had such a rough start. Sarah has always been so independent. Sarah understands that her sister has special needs. But I didn't understand. I was just a kid wondering why having a good immune system made me less worthy of love. Those years shaped me. The constant message that I was somehow inconvenient, unsafe, or simply not worth the effort didn't just disappear. But hey, at least I learned self-sufficiency. When no one checks your homework or celebrates your achievements, you learn to be your own cheerleader. High school? Some people love it, some hate it. For me, it was a ticket out. While Rachel was busy building her high school drama empire, I was laying the groundwork for my escape. And nothing motivates you more than knowing no one else is going to do it for you. Remember those hours I spent organizing Grandma Marie's jewelry collection? Turns out, it gave me a knack for structure and precision. My desk at home looked like a study guide exploded. Color-coded notes, detailed schedules, everything meticulously planned. Rachel used to tease me, calling me Rain Man. But here's the thing about being invisible. No one watches your failures or successes. So you do whatever the hell you want. I joined every club that wouldn't interfere with work. Part-time job at Carson's Diner, check. Shout out to Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents forgot. Debate team, check. President of the National Honor Society, check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, check. On the debate team, I finally found my voice. There's something incredibly satisfying about dismantling someone's argument while keeping your composure. It also taught me how to negotiate, something I didn't know would become useful later. I won state competitions twice. My parents couldn't attend because Rachel had an important soccer game. She was on the C team. She didn't even play. Junior year got really interesting. I took the SAT and scored a perfect 1600. Do you know how rare that is? Less than 1% of test takers achieve it. I stared at the results screen for 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. I rushed home, eager to tell my parents. It was a mistake. Not the score, my excitement. Mom was in the kitchen, helping Rachel with her English homework. The conversation went like this. Me. Mom, look, I got a perfect SAT score. Mom. That's nice, honey, but can you keep it down? Rachel is trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Rachel. Yeah. Some of us actually have to study, Ms. Perfect. Mom. Rachel, honey, don't worry. You're just a different kind of student. That score report never made it to the fridge. But Rachel's C+ in English, front and center, held up with a "We are so proud of you" magnet. The college application process was interesting. I applied to 15 schools without telling anyone, wrote all my essays, gathered recommendations, and handled the financial aid paperwork alone. Mr. Chen, my guidance counselor, was a lifesaver. My parents were too busy to help with FAFSA, so I stayed late after school. Then the acceptances started rolling in, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, all with scholarships. I kept the letters locked in a drawer under my bed, knowing exactly what would happen if Rachel found them. They would suddenly shift their full attention to her. But if Sarah went to Harvard, I'd be all alone or something. The day I got a full tuition offer from the University of Michigan, Rachel joined the junior cheerleading squad. Guess what was celebrated with a family feast? Hint. I had microwave macaroni and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But that scholarship? It was my golden ticket. Tuition, room, and board were all inclusive, as was the book allowance. I was finally able to leave that house where I was either invisible or uncomfortable. The day I received my acceptance package, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a window seat on the 4th floor overlooking the park, and grieved for an hour. Not sad tears. They were tears of relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to UMC, they were ecstatic. Michigan? But that's so far away. What if Rachel needs you? Mom asked. Then she added, I hope you don't expect us to help with expenses. Rachel's cheerleading competitions are very expensive. Rachel practically squealed. Oh my goodness, I can finally have your room. I need a place for my TikTok videos. The summer before college, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save money. Carol, bless her heart, always tipped me extra and made sure I could take home leftover pie at the end of my shifts. She also taught me an important lesson. Baby, in restaurants and in life, those who make the most noise usually say the least. Moving day at the University of Michigan. My parents couldn't make it because, surprise, Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me set up my dorm room, and gave me an envelope with $500 in it. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this, she told me. She's so proud of you. I later learned that Grandma had been saving that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in my dorm room, I promised myself that I would create such a wonderful life that being unnoticed would be unthinkable. Not for revenge, not to prove anything to my family, but for the sake of that 8-year-old girl who used to be sent away for sneezing. College and the start of something new. College passed in a whirlwind of sleepless nights, quick noodles, and Independence paradise. I graduated from the University of Michigan with honors, but my parents didn't notice. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her 3rd college in 2 years. But that's where the plot takes an unexpected turn. I got an entry-level job at the Everett and Phillips auction house in Detroit. I won't use the actual hours, but sorting through Grandma Marie's jewelry collection had taught me a valuable lesson in the need for systematic organization and attention to detail. In high school, I approached everything with the same perspective. My desk at home resembled something out of an organization journal. Color-coded notes, carefully organized lesson plans, and everything in its place. Rachel teased me about it, calling me Rain Man. Very clever, sis. But here's the good thing about not being noticed. No one is watching your successes or failures, so you do whatever the hell you want. I joined every club that didn't interfere with my part-time job at Carson's Diner. Thanks to Carol, the owner, for remembering my birthday when my own parents forgot about it. Debate team, check. President of the National Honor Society, check. Editor-in-chief of the school newspaper, check. It was on the debate team that I really found my voice. There was something deeply satisfying about breaking down someone's argument while keeping complete composure. It also taught me how to negotiate, which I didn't realize at the time would become invaluable later on. I won states twice. My parents didn't attend either competition. Rachel had important soccer games. She was on the C team and didn't even play in the game. Things really got interesting in my junior year of high school. I took the SAT and got a perfect score. Not like, oh, pretty good. Perfect. I mean perfect. 1,600. Do you know how many people get that? Less than 1%. I remember staring at the results screen for almost 20 minutes, convinced it was a mistake. I rushed home to tell my parents, but that's when I realized it was stupid. Mom was in the kitchen helping Rachel with her English homework. The conversation went something like this. Me. Mom, look, I got a perfect score on the SAT. Mom. That's nice, sweetie, but can you keep it down? Rachel is trying to concentrate. She has a big test tomorrow. Rachel. Right. Yes. Some of us do have to study, Ms. Perfect. Mom, Rachel, honey, don't feel bad. You're just a different kind of student. I still have a hard copy of those SAT scores somewhere. It was never put on the refrigerator. But Rachel got a C+ in English, and it graced a spot on the fridge, complete with a "We're so proud of you" magnet. The college application process was interesting. I applied to 15 schools without letting anyone know. I wrote all of my own essays, gathered my own recommendations, and handled all of the paperwork for financial aid on my own. My counselor, Mr. Chen, was a true MVP. My parents were too busy to help me with the FAFSA, so I stayed late after school. Then the acceptances started coming in. Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Michigan, each with a scholarship offer. I kept them all in a locked box under my bed, knowing what would happen if Rachel discovered them. They would suddenly turn all their attention to her. But if Sarah goes to Harvard, I'll be all alone. Or something like that. The day I received a fully funded offer from the University of Michigan, Rachel joined the junior class cheerleading squad. Guess whose success was celebrated with a family feast? Hint. I ate microwave macaroni and cheese in my room while they went to Olive Garden. But guess what? The scholarship was my golden ticket. All-inclusive tuition, room and board, and a book allowance. I was finally able to leave that house where I was either invisible or a burden. The day I received my acceptance package, I went to my favorite spot in the local library, a window seat on the 4th floor overlooking the park, and cried for an hour. They weren't sad tears. They were tears of relief. When I told my parents at dinner that I was going to U of M, their reaction was priceless. Mom, Michigan? But that's so far away. What if Rachel needs you? Mom again. I hope you don't expect us to help with expenses. Rachel's cheerleading competition is very expensive. Rachel. Oh my God, finally! Can I have your room? I need a place for my TikTok videos. That summer, I worked double shifts at Carson's Diner to save money. Carol, bless her, always gave me extra tips and made sure I could take home the leftover pie at the end of my shift. She also taught me one vital skill: how to recognize real people in a society full of phonies. Baby, she told me, in life and in restaurants, those who make the most noise usually have the least to say. My parents couldn't attend because, surprise, Rachel had a cheerleading competition. Aunt Kelly drove me instead, helped me furnish my dorm room, and gave me an envelope with $500 in it. Your Grandma Marie wanted you to have this, she told me. She's so proud of you. I later learned that Grandma had been saving that money from her Social Security checks for months. That first night in my dorm room, I promised myself that I would create such a beautiful life that being ignored would be unthinkable. Not for revenge, not to prove anything to my family, but for the sake of that 8-year-old girl who was sent to her grandmother's house for sneezing. College flew by in a whirlwind of sleepless nights, instant noodles, and heavenly independence. I graduated from the University of Michigan with honors, though my parents didn't notice. They were too busy helping Rachel transfer to her 3rd college in 2 years. But this is where the plot takes an unexpected turn. I landed an entry-level job at the Everett and Phillips auction house in Detroit. If you know the industry, you know the name. I won't say it outright for obvious reasons, but let's just say this wasn't your average auction house. It was the kind that catered to the elite, dripping in old money and discreet transactions. I started on the estate sale side of the business, which basically meant cataloging the possessions of the dead. Not exactly glamorous, but it paid the bills. Then came my breakthrough. At first, the work was routine. Endless inventories of fine china, antique furniture, and overpriced tchotchkes. That all changed with the Kingston estate. Mrs. Kingston, a wealthy widow with no heirs, left behind what was presumed to be a massive collection of costume jewelry, entire rooms filled with it. That's when all those hours sorting Grandma Marie's jewelry paid off. I was combing through the collection when something caught my eye, an Art Deco brooch. At first glance, nothing remarkable, but the weight was off, heavier than cheap costume jewelry. The clasp? Too intricate to be a knockoff. My gut told me this was something more. I spent my entire lunch hour researching antique jewelry hallmarks, then stayed late to comb through the company's vintage jewelry databases. The more I dug, the more convinced I became. This wasn't just another trinket. It was real, valuable. But I was the new girl. Nobody was going to take my word for it. So, I did what years on the debate team had taught me. I built my case. Over 2 weeks, I buried myself in Art Deco authentication, pouring every spare moment into studying brands, techniques, and market history. I even dipped into my meager savings for an online gemology course. Armed with a full presentation, I finally approached my boss, Mr. Harrison. The conversation went something like this. Me. Sir, I think there's something significant in the Kingston collection. Harrison, barely looking up from his phone. Sarah, we've already cataloged that as costume jewelry. Me. Right. I know. But look at these markings. They match the 1925 Cartier signatures. Exactly. That got his attention. Harrison, finally looking at the images. Where did you learn to do this? Me, a little sheepish. I did some research. Long story. Long story short, the brooch sold for $47,000. It turned out to be part of an exclusive collection designed for European nobility in the 1920s. That was the moment everything changed. Harrison started trusting me. He brought me more pieces to authenticate, and suddenly, my odd obsession with antique jewelry had real weight. I threw myself into learning, every online course I could afford, every estate sale I could attend, every authentication method I could document. My apartment transformed into a shrine to vintage jewelry, walls plastered with printouts of old hallmarks and certification manuals. And it paid off. The auction house was thriving. I was uncovering hidden gems, forging connections with collectors, and carving out a real place in the industry. My commissions grew. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just getting by. I was saving money, building something of my own. My family, of course, barely noticed. Sunday dinners were the same exercise in indifference. Mom. Sarah still works at that antique store, right? Me. Auction house. And actually, I just authenticated a rare Tiffany piece. Rachel, cutting in without missing a beat. Oh my God, speaking of jewelry, you guys have to see this bracelet I got at the mall. I used to care, used to crave their validation, but not anymore, because for the first time, I had something that was mine, something that had nothing to do with being Rachel's sister or the family afterthought. And then, the Rothschild collection landed on my desk. 2 years into my career, everything was about to change again. A massive estate, a family with old money stretching back generations. The entire industry was buzzing. I was part of the team cataloging their jewelry collection when I noticed a seemingly unremarkable Art Nouveau piece that everyone else had overlooked. 3 days of obsessive research followed. Little sleep, endless cross-referencing. And then, the breakthrough. It was a lost piece from the private collection of a renowned French jeweler, thought to have vanished during World War II. When it sold at auction for $248,000, Harrison called me into his office. I thought I was getting promoted. Instead, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "Sarah, you're wasting your talent. You should be running your own authentication business." At first, I laughed it off. Start a business? With what money? But the idea lodged itself in my brain. I started taking on small authentication projects on the side, and word spread quickly. I had an eye. Private collectors began reaching out directly. One evening, sitting in my cramped apartment, surrounded by stacks of jewelry manuals and the authentication tools I'd slowly amassed, it hit me. I can do this. I can build something of my own. So, I did what any sane person would do. I took out a loan against my car, drained my savings, and rented a tiny office in the less glamorous part of town. People thought I was insane. Maybe I was. Fast forward a few years. I was raking in 7 figures, but I still showed up to Sunday dinners at my parents' house in carefully chosen, modest clothes, enduring overcooked roast while Rachel regaled everyone with stories of her marketing genius. Usually, it involved fetching coffee without spilling it. One Sunday stands out. I had just closed a massive deal authenticating a long-lost Cartier piece from a forgotten safety deposit box. My commission? 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' house, still high on the victory. Mom squinted at me. "Sarah, dear, are you okay? Your clothes look a little worn." "Oh, trying to save money," I replied, sitting there in a $3,000 cashmere sweater deliberately chosen for its understated look. Rachel smirked. "Well, maybe if you got a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." "Rachel, be nice," Dad chided. "Not everyone can be as successful as you." I nearly choked on my roast, biting back laughter. Around this time, my parents' finances took a hit. Aunt Kelly confided that they were struggling with Rachel's student loans and medical bills. Then, one day, Mom casually mentioned they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. No matter what, it was still my childhood home. So, I set up an anonymous monthly transfer of $5,000 into their account. When they asked where the money was coming from, I played my role well. Just saving a little, living on rice and beans. They assumed Aunt Kelly or another relative was pitching in. Rachel, of course, took credit for rallying the family to help. The money helped, but it also had unexpected consequences. My parents started treating me like some noble, struggling saint, sacrificing everything for the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending became outright absurd. She waltzed into dinners flaunting new designer bags, swearing they were outlet steals. They weren't. I could spot authentic Gucci from across the room. Then came the lavish vacations, the Instagram posts showcasing her hard-earned lifestyle. I had no doubt she was using my money. The irony was delicious. And then came Rachel's next act. She decided she needed an MBA. But not just anywhere, another private university, naturally. "Only the best for the golden child," Mom called me, teary-eyed, explaining that they couldn't afford it. "Maybe Rachel should consider a public school," I suggested. Mom gasped as if I had just suggested she send Rachel to live in a cardboard box. "Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister has to maintain a certain level." So I caved. Again. I increased my monthly contributions to $7,000. It didn't hurt my finances, but watching them praise Rachel for taking the initiative while assuming I was living off instant noodles, that stung. Fate has a twisted sense of humor. The same business school Rachel wanted to attend. I had already been invited there as a guest lecturer. The dean himself had asked me to give a talk on the authenticity of luxury goods and business growth. My family had no idea. That week, when Mom asked why I couldn't make it to Sunday dinner, I made some vague excuse about work. Because, of course, they would never believe that their struggling daughter was being treated as an expert in a field they didn't respect. My success had become my own little secret, like a corporate superhero leading a double life. By day, I ran a multi-million-dollar authentication business. By night, well, by Sunday dinner, I was just Sarah, the daughter who still worked at the antique store. The weight of the lies was becoming unbearable. Rachel had taken too many jabs at my career. Mom had apologized one too many times to her friends for my frugal lifestyle. Dad had made one too many comments about me finding a real job. And then Thanksgiving happened. It started 2 weeks before the holiday when Mom called me, nearly in tears. She had been diagnosed with a herniated disc and was dreading cooking for 20 guests. Now, I'd love to say I offered to help out of pure kindness. But honestly, I was tired of pretending her dry turkey was edible. "Why don't I handle the food this year? I can order catering." "Oh, honey, we can't afford that." "Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up." "You're not taking out a loan, are you?" I reassured her and got to work. I hired a high-end catering firm, the same one I used for business events. The cost? More than my parents thought I made in 2 months. But it would be worth it. Thanksgiving morning, I arrived feeling good. I had my laptop with me to keep an eye on an online auction in Hong Kong. An exquisite Art Nouveau necklace was up for bid, and a client was interested in having me authenticate it. The food arrived on schedule. It was perfect. Every dish cooked to perfection, the kind of meal that makes you question why anyone bothers roasting a turkey themselves. And then, Rachel had to comment. "Stuffing from the store? Really, Sarah? My mom makes it so much better." This from the girl who once set off a smoke alarm while toasting bread, and millions of dollars. And evenings at my parents' house in carefully tailored casual clothes, eating overcooked roasts from my mom, while Rachel enlivened the conversation with stories of her latest marketing triumphs, usually about something like how she brought coffee to her boss without spilling it. One Sunday night, in particular, sticks out in my memory. I had just completed a huge deal to authenticate a missing Cartier item that had been sitting in one man's safe deposit box for 40 years. The commission alone totaled 7 figures. I drove straight from the meeting to my parents' house, still feeling euphoric from the successful verification. Mom said, "Sarah, dear, is everything all right? Your clothes look a little ragged." "Oh, trying to save money," I said, wearing a $3,000 cashmere sweater that I had deliberately chosen for its understated look. Rachel retorted, "Well, if you'd gotten a real job instead of playing with old jewelry." Dad pulled her back. "Rachel, be nice. Not everyone can be as successful as you are." I almost choked on the roast, trying not to laugh. Anonymous transfers, monthly payments to my parents, started around this time. Aunt Kelly informed me that they were having a hard time paying for Rachel's educational loans and medical bills. My mom nonchalantly stated that they might have to sell the house. I couldn't let that happen. No matter what, it was still the house I had grown up in. So I started an anonymous monthly transfer of $50,000 into their account. When they asked where the money came from, I told them I was saving $1,000 a month by living on rice and beans. They figured the rest came from Aunt Kelly or another family member. Rachel, of course, took credit for inspiring family members to help. Watching Rachel spend my money. The money helped, but it also had unexpected consequences. My parents began to treat me with a strange combination of sadness and condescending pride, as if I was some noble, beggarly person sacrificing everything to support the family. Meanwhile, Rachel's spending sprees were becoming more and more extravagant. She would show up to dinner with expensive new bags, claiming they were outlet finds. They weren't. I could recognize authentic Gucci at 20 paces. She started going on extravagant vacations and bragging on Instagram about her happy life. I'm pretty sure she used my money for these shopping trips. However, I remained silent. The irony was just delightful. Then the college drama unfolded, with Rachel informing me that she wanted to go back to school for her MBA. To another private university, of course. Only the best for the golden child. My mom contacted me in tears, explaining that they couldn't afford it. I said, maybe Rachel could look into public schools. They have good programs too. Mom grimaced. Oh, honey, you don't understand. Your sister has to maintain a certain level. But I wasn't going to contribute. Maybe I could increase my monthly contributions for a few years. I increased them to $7,000 a month. My accounts weren't affected. But watching them praise Rachel for taking the initiative in education while assuming I was living on instant noodles to help out, it stung a little. I was offered a guest seminar at the same business school Rachel wanted to attend. My family didn't know about it. Deacon personally invited me to give a lecture on luxury authenticity and business growth. I had to make an excuse not to attend Sunday dinner that week. My own accomplishments began to feel like a completely separate life, like I was some kind of corporate superhero with a hidden identity. By day, I was running a multi-million-dollar authentication business, and by night, or rather, Sunday night, I was just Sarah, the frustrated daughter working in an antique store. The weight of the lies was getting heavier and heavier. Rachel made several rude remarks about my career. Each time, Mom apologized to her friends for my frugal lifestyle. Each time, Dad suggested I get a real job. I guess I always knew it would end dramatically. I just didn't expect it to blow up so spectacularly on Thanksgiving. It all started 2 weeks before the holiday. My mom called, crying about back pain. She had been diagnosed with a herniated disc, and the thought of cooking Thanksgiving dinner for 20 guests terrified her. Now, I'd like to tell you that I offered to help purely out of good faith, but really, I was tired of pretending that her dried turkey was appetizing. Me. Why don't I take over the cooking this year? I can order catering. Her. Oh, honey, we can't afford that. Me. Don't worry about the cost. I've been saving up the money. Mom concerned. You're not taking out a loan, I hope? I coordinated with a high-end catering firm I use for business meetings. They do an incredible job. So good it makes you wonder why you ever bothered to cook yourself. It cost more than my parents think I make in 2 months. But whatever. Thanksgiving morning came, and I was feeling pretty good. I had my laptop with me because I needed to keep an eye on a major online auction in Hong Kong. There was a gorgeous Art Nouveau necklace for sale, and I had a client who was interested in authenticating it if it won the auction. Lunch arrived on schedule, and everything was perfectly cooked. Rachel, of course, had to comment. Rachel. Stuffing from the store? Seriously, Sarah? My mom's stuffing is so much better. This from the girl who once set off a smoke alarm while making toast. Mom apologized to everyone for not making it herself, but as you might have guessed, they enjoyed the meal. Rachel fell silent after trying the maple-glazed Brussels sprouts, which, by the way, cost more per plate than her weekly grocery budget. I stepped away from dinner and dessert to check my laptop. The auction was getting more and more intriguing, and I needed to be prepared in case my client won. I settled into my old bedroom, which my mom had kept the same as it had been in high school. Meanwhile, Rachel's room had undergone 3 renovations. That's when it all went wrong. I left my authentication program running, with many tabs open displaying various accounts and current agreements. Rachel walked in without knocking, some things never change, to borrow my phone charger. She saw my laptop screen and realized this was her chance to finally expose how pathetic her older sister was. Rachel, smirking, "Let's show everyone what Sarah has really been up to." Before I could stop her, she grabbed my laptop and went into the dining room. Imagine this: 20 people, including aunts, uncles, cousins, and my parents, sitting around a table stuffed with gourmet turkey and half drunk on expensive wine they'd mistaken for Trader Joe's. Rachel, determined to show what an important job Sarah was doing on Thanksgiving, triumphantly unfolded the laptop. There was complete silence in the room. Even the ticking of the fancy clock I'd given my mom for Christmas could be heard. She thought it was a reproduction. My screen displayed current account balance, 12 combinations of $4 million. Pending authentication contract, $485,000. Recent transaction, one whole $3 million. Company quarterly earnings report, $402 million. The expression on Rachel's face shifted through 5 different emotions in 3 seconds. The last one stopped somewhere between amazement and nausea. She even swayed slightly on her feet. Rachel whispers, "This can't be true." Mom, "Rachel, honey, what's wrong?" Rachel, voice trembling, She's rich." "Sarah is rich." Chaos ensued. If it was possible, the silence grew even deeper. Then Mom started giggling, really laughing. She said, "Don't be silly. Sarah works at that little antique store." I stood up, carefully straightening my simple cashmere sweater that cost more than their monthly mortgage. Me. "Actually, Mom, I own one of the largest jewelry authentication companies in the country. All those years of comments about the antique store. I authenticate items worth millions of dollars. This little business you never asked about has offices in 3 cities." Dad choked on his liquor. Aunt Kelly dropped her fork. Uncle started coughing horribly. Then Mom's laughter turned into something else. Her face turned red, then purple. She stood up so fast that her chair fell over. "Mom," she shouted, "you have millions and you let us fight?" Me. Fight? I send you $7,000 every month. Rachel interjects. You're sitting on millions and my sister has student loans. That's it. No congratulations. No, wow, we're so proud. Just outrage that I didn't give them more money. Rachel cried. Unexpected, I know, sobbing about how she deserved to know and how I had betrayed the family. Dad joined her. Daddy, how could you be so selfish? We're your parents. We raised you. That's when I lost my temper. Years of neglect, years of being seen as the family disappointment. It all came out. Raised me? You sent me to my grandmother every time I sneezed. You missed every accomplishment, every award, every milestone because Rachel might feel left out. You never saved a dime for my college, but you took out loans for her private school. And now you're mad that I built something on my own? The next 5 minutes were chaotic. Mom yelled about family obligations. Dad yelled about ungrateful children. Rachel took turns sobbing and demanding to know how much money I had. Meanwhile, the exquisite catering staff tried to serve dessert, trying to look as awkward as possible. I grabbed my laptop, grabbed my Hermes bag, which my mom had previously praised as a good replica, and walked out. Here's your text with grammar and formatting corrections while keeping everything else intact. Behind me, I heard my mom discussing how to spend my money, something about MBA programs and a new car for Rachel. As I drove home in my sensible car, a limited edition BMW, my phone started filling up with messages. The family's group chat exploded. Rachel started posting on Facebook about hidden family wealth and selfish siblings. The aftermath. The days after Thanksgiving were like watching a cyclone strike in slow motion, except the hurricane represented my family and the wreckage symbolized my sanity. Let's start with the texting and messaging. Within an hour of leaving dinner, my phone had 47 missed calls and over 200 messages. Mom showed a curious persistence. 1942. How dare you leave your family? 2015. We need to discuss this as adults. 2103. Your sister deserves a share of your success. 2230. I've already called the real estate agent about houses in more upscale neighborhoods. 2345. Why aren't you answering? It's your mother. Rachel, on the other hand, became completely addicted to social media. She wrote a huge Facebook tirade about how her millionaire sister was amassing wealth while watching her beloved family struggle. This tirade caught on with just about everyone. Distant relatives and former classmates I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly formed firm opinions about my moral character. But what really stuck with me? Rachel had actually published all those years of her trying to help me with career advice. Advice that apparently came from her vast experience at that little antique store. She was secretly rich, and I was just the dumb older sister who never listened. The betrayal stung so badly I almost threw my phone across the room. What was the only career advice she had ever given me? She once suggested I try selling jewelry on Etsy. If you're not familiar with the term flying monkeys, it happens when toxic family members send others to make you feel guilty. Aunt Susan, who I see maybe once every 3 years, called to let me know that family is everything. Uncle Bob, who I'm pretty sure still thinks I'm 12, sent me a long lecture on the importance of sharing wealth. Even my wife's cousin's wife, where she learned my number, I have no idea, felt compelled to share her thoughts on family duty. But the real fun began when they arrived at my workplace. I arrived on Monday morning to find Mom, Dad, and Rachel sitting in our reception area. They had informed Jenny, my secretary, that they had an appointment for authentication services. Rachel was clutching her Michael Kors bag as if it was actually worth something. The conversation went as well as you'd expect. Mom, we discussed it as a family. Me, a family discussion, without the family member you're discussing? Mom, ignoring me, and we think it's only fair that you set up trust funds for everyone. Rachel, interjecting. I need at least $2 million to start my new life properly. Dad, and your mother and I would like to retire. We're thinking about a beach house in Florida. Me, pointing out, you missed the part where I send you $7,000 a month. Rachel, that's nothing compared to what you have. You owe us. I thought to myself, owe you? For what exactly? For years of being ignored? For missing graduation? For the constant comparisons? Mom, don't be so dramatic. Mom, Sarah, we gave you everything. Me, no, I gave myself everything, and you know what? I'm done. Right there in the hallway of my office, I pulled out my phone and canceled my monthly transfers to their account. My mom gasped like I had physically struck her. Rachel started her fake crying act, but quickly stopped when she saw it wasn't working. Then things got nasty. They refused to leave. I had to contact security. Seeing my 60-year-old mother being dragged out while she screamed about ungrateful children was strange. Jenny asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no. I did, however, put their names on a list of people banned from entering the building. The harassment continued for weeks. New phone numbers, fake email addresses, even attempts to contact me through my company's customer service. Eventually, I had to issue a formal legal notice threatening harassment charges. That's when Mom played her last card. She called Grandma Marie. But here's the thing about Grandma Marie. She's wiser than all of them put together. How did she react? Good for Sarah. It's about time someone in this family succeeded on their own. Mom didn't speak to her for 2 months after that. It's been 6 months since Thanksgiving. I moved into a new house with better security. I changed all my numbers. What about the company? We're doing better than ever. It turns out my family drama caught the attention of several high-profile clients who respected my discretion under the circumstances. Rachel continues to write passive-aggressive updates about toxic wealth and family betrayal. She is rumored to be starting her own jewelry authentication firm. Good luck to her on that one. Mom and Dad finally stopped trying to contact me when my attorney wrote them a formal letter outlining how stalking charges would affect their lives. Now, they're telling everyone they never wanted my money and are praying for my salvation. What's the best part? For the first time in my life, I feel free. No more Sunday dinners full of hidden insults. No more downplaying my accomplishments to spare their feelings. No more funding Rachel's show. My therapist thinks I'm finally setting healthy boundaries. I say, I'm finally living authentically. So that's my story, Reddit. Thank you for letting me share it. Special thanks to the catering company that sent me a Christmas letter saying that Thanksgiving dinner was the highlight of their year. Edit. Answers to frequently asked questions. Yes, I am still in therapy. No, I don't regret cutting them out of my life. Yes, Grandma Marie is fine. She's coming to visit next month to help me catalog my new collection. One last thing. Rachel, I know you're probably reading this. That Cartier bracelet you wore in your last Instagram post? Definitely a fake. Just saying.